Welcome to the podcast, Death, a Changing Industry. Today we had the great pleasure and privilege to welcome the SAIF President, Declan Maguire, and the immediate past President of the NAFD, Barry Pritchard. Both, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. It feels like having this conversation is very important, especially the time we're now in the funeral industry and in society. So Barry's conference, which was held in Windsor in May, there was quite a moment, and we talked about it briefly in Declan's interview, where it was announced how there's going to be a collaboration between NAFD and SAIF. For yourself, Barry, if I can ask you to actually explain what happened there, just to start off about how that's going to work moving forward, please.
John, as you know, I was very encouraged by your year as office as National President, and you used the words together again and together going forwards. Forgive me if I've not got that.
Onwards together.
Onwards together.
Yeah.
I knew it was something.
Come on, Barry.
But the reality to that was it really does mean something.
Yeah.
Because my version of that is there's far more that unites us in our world of serving the bereaved than divides us.
Yeah.
We may have differences along the way within our associations and how we approach things, but the actual care and looking after deceased and families who are bereaved we all do the same job every day, and it's vitally important that we stand firm and understand the need that our clients put upon us every day. That's what drives me forward, and that was the reason why I think throughout my year we created more narrative between ourselves, say, and your predecessor, Mark Horton, who was a great guy in the role prior to you. And I know that Declan, you are taking that mantra into new heights now. One of the great things that I think that we've achieved now is open discussions, honest, frank talking, and we've got somewhere with our professional standards, in so much so that at my conference, we were able to agree and announce that we have a united code, a professional set of standards that everyone in our profession should work to.
Yeah, it's really exciting times, and I felt like at your conference, it was quite a moment for the funeral industry as a whole. Would you agree with that, Declan, as well?
I would. I think I had the unique position of being at the back of the room, which is my favourite place to be at conferences, because you get to see how things are kind of being taken, and it was a moment. It really was, in terms of the reaction. There was gasps from some people in the room. There was applause.
Yeah.
And I looked up to Barry because I knew it must have been challenging to make that announcement. I think because we had really not announced anything in the lead up to it. And I did look up at you and I thought, okay, fingers crossed you're here, Barry. This is a big one.
Yes.
And it was nice to see your reaction to the reaction as well, of kind of like, okay, we've done the right thing here. We've moved forward, and a round of applause. I didn't see that coming. I think I expected some questions and different things, but it did reflect the feeling in the room.
I think the music was extraordinary. I mean, it's what everyone has been asking us to do to actually face our new hurdles. Our history is important. We talk a lot in NAFD about the creation of NAFD some 120 years ago. But actually, whilst that's important to celebrate where we've come from, it doesn't define us in our future. And the only way that we're going to get forward and fit for purpose today and beyond today and for the next however 100 years that we'll be in existence is that we actually talk and collaborate and understand and listen. And I think that was the mood of the room. That's exactly it.
For me, I felt a huge sense of relief and actually quite moved without sounding over dramatic, because I've been with Barry for the whole of his 12 months and he was with me for my 12 months, very close together. And I knew Barry's vision about working together, like truly, and I always thought it was out of reach. I didn't think it was possible based on, say, historic views, or I'm not sure, but that's a question for you guys. So when it was announced, it was quite a moment, and I think for both of you, it is a special moment, and I think it does require the right people at the right time, and that's come together. So I think testament to you both, really, and through challenging times, and like you say, it requires some bravery as well to stand forward.
It does, yeah.
And I don't think it ends certainly with myself or Declan or people coming in afterwards. It's a start of something to hold on to and keep those discussions going. We must never get to the stage where we stop talking.
Yeah. And as I say, all three of us are more interested in the future. We have a respect for the past, and the past is important. Just to touch on, without going too heavy or focus too much on the past, why has there been frictions and fractions? What created that? What was the cause of that? And why is it such a big hurdle to get to this point now?
It's a good question. I think, I've been involved with SAIF from about 2017, 2018. And, I'm certainly aware of it. I never really invested any time in it, though, because it really didn't have any outcomes in terms of it. But I also think this is a natural thing in many ways when you've got two trade associations that compete against each other. And that's exactly what happens, is that often it's the case that it's too easy to point to the other one and say, look what they're doing. When in fact, and that builds up barriers by itself, because there's an energy of that. When you often see this in many other scenarios in terms of competition between countries and clubs and all sorts. What drives people forward is looking at competition. It's okay to be like that, but you've still got to have the communication channels open, because people start assuming that no matter what you come up with, the other one's going to say no.
Yeah.
And we had to cut through that and say, well, has anybody asked? And that is the key question: has anybody actually asked? Yeah. And I think, fortunately, I've met you both before. I'm very familiar with a lot of the other people over at NAFD. And I couldn't imagine a scenario where we couldn't have sat down and had a conversation. It just didn't make sense to me. But over time, and as I said earlier, there's not a big turnover of people. A lot of long memories, a lot of experiences from 20 years ago have still been held on to. After Hull, it was just time to cut through that and just say, enough's enough. We need to get through this. We need to start making some moves, because if we do not forge a path forward together on the topic of regulation, we'll always compete, but on the topic of this, we have to do it. Otherwise, government will do it to us.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So we have to.
Barry?
I absolutely echo everything that Declan said. And one of the proudest times of my presidency was being at the SAIF conference to see Declan installed as the national president of SAIF. And his dad was there, who had been the national president of the NAFD so many years earlier. Yeah. And as Declan agreed to, they had a photograph taken wearing the NAFD, sorry, your father had the NAFD chain placed back on his shoulders, and there was a great photograph. Father and son at the top of their tree in associations, working for the funeral directors of this land for the quality and assurance of our service towards bereaved families.
Yeah. A moment.
Absolutely. That's a moment in time.
Yeah. It's interesting though, like these moments, I think it does require, again, leadership, strong leadership, brave leadership to ensure it actually happens. It's easy for it not to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that can be overlooked quite easily.
Yeah, it's too easy.
Yeah.
For not to, because this is, if we look at everything that's going on, and we were talking earlier about the rate of change in the funeral profession, and I had said from 2002 to 2017, I didn't see much change at all. I'd been away from it, and there wasn't much going on, but all of a sudden, so much is happening. And I think that, if your agenda is not full at every meeting, you're not really doing, you're not really good. I think we can sit and wait for things to happen to us, or we can actually get proactive and be on top of it. And I have to say, collaboration, since we've started, obviously, the work on the code, there's been some fantastically innovative ideas that have come from people at NAFD, people at SAIF, and actually thinking above and beyond. And that's been an amazing experience.
And that in itself is just something that you could have never predicted. I have never predicted. We hoped for, I aspired that would happen. Back in 1980, I sat my diploma. When you sort of get how time moves on, and then you realise that was 44 years ago. before you two were around.
It was just around.
Okay.
I wasn't.
If I was sitting the same exam today, I would have a very different view of my educational needs. Because what you just said, Declan, is that you got through that and you just carried on because that's what happened.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we now have so much more on our in our tray and on our agendas to deal with, and we have to grasp that nettle and run with it.
So one of the driving forces in working together was the illegal activity that's taking place in Hull, which that's an investigation which is still going through. How are NAFD and SAIF working together then to create reassurance, to build reassurance and confidence for bereaved families and just the public who aren't bereaved that we're doing things correctly for the United Kingdom, funeral industry as a whole? How do you both ensure that is in place?
I think the first step is the code. You have to start there. You have to start there. And there's still details being worked out. But I think what I love about the work that was done by that team was that there still was this ability to maintain the unique identity of both organisations. You've got your central code that works for all, but still there are requirements to join. There absolutely has to be, and they are unique to each. Very similar in a lot of ways. That was a great thing, and that work is still ongoing at the moment. I know there's still that particular team of people are working away. The next steps, probably one of the challenges we've got is a new government, which is always fun, and that's new attitudes, new intentions. However, the problem has not gone away, and it will need to be addressed. And we're very aware there was a number of MPs who had commentary on the sidelines of that. And I think my hope on this is that that energy does not wane, because we have both been saying for years we need regulation. We have done all we can do. I mean, without legislation, there's nothing else we can do. So it's time for the government to step forward as well. But we have to be there too. We have to be on the front foot.
And I totally agree with what you're saying. The Ministry of Justice are empowered to look at this on behalf of the central government's aspirations for some form of regulation. How that will work and manifest itself, we don't know yet. That's a work in progress. But one thing we have to do, we have to, like any department in government, we have to be fit for purpose. So from that point of view, our associations have to work together. We need to work together. We must work together. So we're fit for any questions and any responses that are required of us. Yeah,
I think government will now look at it and take this all seriously now. There's two associations working together properly for the greater good of the United Kingdom.
Answer separately. We have to answer with a united voice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because they're not interested in sectional interest. They're just not. They just have a problem to solve. And the problem is standards in funeral service. That's the problem. They're not interested in our opinion differing slightly from yours and vice versa. They just want to know that they have got people they can work with, irrespective of what organisation they come from. But they know that if they can supply the legislation solution, that they've got expertise there. And it really is, when you think about the amount of inspections and the standards and the amount of work over the years that's gone into this, we are the experts, and we've got this robust removed inspectorate from both organisations to contribute to the solution. So whatever form it takes, we're ready for it, which is great. And they know they can come to us, and there is a voice, and not many voices, which is good.
So we talk about the past, and we talk about the present, and again, the issues around what's happened in Hull. The future, we're in a strong position working together to deal with issues. What issues do you think we could face in the future based on the changes we're seeing now, away from Hull, just, day-to-day activity around funerals, society, and the bereaved? Do you see any challenges we have now in front of us where we can work together to do better work?
Well, I would say, firstly, just on the whole scenario and other things that come to our desk daily on press getting involved, it's a tragedy for all of us. That should never have happened in any form. I think that's something that we have to together work on, that we could never be in this situation again, and that make sure that our societies, our associations are robust enough to make sure that the membership understand that there is a requirement of each and every member to act and behave responsibly. That in itself is a task, but one that we're ready for the challenge. I think we've got to demonstrate to the public of this country that we can and we will manage this.
Yeah, I would agree. I think and having everyone out, of course, because I think there are a number of situations where people who don't choose, and it's a minority, to be part of either trade association, there is no scrutiny whatsoever. So whatever solution comes, it has to be, all-encompassing. And of course, the fuller inquiry is yet to report. We're all waiting to see what comes from that. But again, there is the potential there for a requirement for individuals, just some accountability or some form of registration. We don't know until we see it come out. But it is clear that, companies or entities are held to standards, but ultimately it's the behaviours of the individuals as well. So we're very mindful of that, and that is an active part of our discussions as to how do we address that and ensure that we have best coverage in terms of standards and requirements as we possibly can.
Fantastic. Hey guys, thank you for watching the video so far. I hope you're really enjoying it. Please click the thumbs up on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, a huge thank you to our sponsors. Their details are found in the video description just below. Thank you so much. On the podcasts previously as well, with Katie Costello, Daniel Duval, and actually numerous other podcasts we've done with interviews, a lot of them always come back to an unattended direct cremation and actually how that can affect people, not for now, in the future with their grief and how they move forward in a positive way. And a lot of people are concerned that it's actually a sort of a major issue ahead of us, which we haven't hit yet. The direct cremations have taken place, but actually the grief is not resolved, and it's not until years later we're going to start to see how bad this trauma is. Is there any work that NAFD and SAIF can do together to try and raise awareness about the importance of saying goodbye?
It's a great question. I don't think we've touched on that yet.
Now it's time.
One project at a time. It is. It's I think it's probably conversations ongoing at NAFD about that. Same at SAIF. I think it's interesting. The perception of direct cremation, I think, is the first thing you've got to look at, because ultimately it is only a part of a funeral. And initially, I think when direct cremation came up, there was obvious concerns for funeral directors because business models are based upon having the hearse, the limousine, the facilities for viewing and services, etc. All very different, of course. And I think, understandably, there was a financial threat there in terms of, well, our model doesn't work anymore, but half of our families or more still want the limousine, but these now don't. There's a lot of things to consider, different models, different sizes of companies. But with that, I think, what we're kind of seeing, and we do stay on top of the research, is that, yes, it has increased to a certain percentage, and that percentage is fairly comparable to the Australian model. It happened, well, 2010, that journey started for them. We got it in 3 years when they took 10 years to get to where it is. Yeah. So a lot of things accelerated the process, and it was probably a shock to the system. At the same time, I think it was about a learning from the funeral director to understand that, okay, direct cremation is not the whole thing. There are other services and facilities that you can offer to the family at the same time that you have that are custom made for a funeral. And so I think what we're kind of seeing at the minute is a shock to the system from the sector, and it's kind of dissipating a little bit by going, okay, so it's not just that. I have to make sure everything else is offered at the same time. Of course you should. In terms of grief, that's a great question. And I think we're probably beginning to see, and, I do have a look at reviews online to see what people's feedback is on direct cremation. It's not always positive. No. And, you are, obviously very much in the grief side of things. It's a piece of research that I think it has a little bit's been done in it. I think more work needs to be done, but it's a conversation down the road.
And it's a conversation that will only get stronger, I think, as time goes on. One thing I would say to that I think there was a slight redress in the escalation of the use of direct services, unattended services, when our late Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, passed away. And I think if that had gone to a direct service, I think the whole country would have actually gone into meltdown.
Yeah.
The absolutely outpouring of grief within the United Kingdom was tangible, and around the world for that matter. So I think that just put things into context where whereabouts people need to. A funeral is for the living. It's a way to say farewell and goodbye. And if that's taken away from them, no doubt there's somewhere along that journey of their continued lifespan, they will have regrets. Not may have regrets, they will have regrets, I think, at some point. I do think that, yes, it's a cost model in for some people. I absolutely get that. But people don't need to go to online companies and have their loved ones taken to other parts of the United Kingdom for an unattended cremation. I think the conversation that we're having now within our funeral directing world is that people can stay local.
Yeah.
And funeral directors are offering that same service. And it's about how do we present ourselves.
Yeah.
Someone said to me about if you liken yourselves as funeral director into some other sphere, into a restaurant area, funeral directors, where would we put ourselves? Food is in part of our lives. We go out to eat most days. McDonald's, choose one of the chains, to a Michelin star, to a Chinese, to an Indian. They're all restaurants. Actually, how do we define ourselves within funeral service? What end of the spectrum of providing service are we? Are we Michelin star? Are we middle of the road?
Yeah.
Or are we something that actually is just fast and...
The issue with that is back to the grief again, is when you're not having anything at all, it's how you deal with the grief. So the question is then, because online, the interviews we've done around direct cremation, so sometimes people on there will say, I had direct cremation and I have not been allowed to grieve for my mum, for my dad, and they are in a very, very dark place following that decision, and that's an unattended, no contact. And I know you said it's changing. The question is, what is a funeral service? That's a question for us all to answer in the future. But something that comes up as well is the cost of a funeral. How do we tackle then costs to make it sure that everybody has an opportunity to say goodbye to someone, making it more affordable? Is there anything else that we need to do as a nation to ensure that everybody has the right to say goodbye in some methods where it will help their grief as they move forward?
The question, I think, in the context of grief, I personally, I always think a goodbye, you have to do something. And I think in our chat earlier, I had spoken about there are some cultural observations. I know my family would observe certain cultural observations because it's comforting and it would make them feel better. But I think, choice is everything. And that is definitely coming down the line stronger and stronger as personalisation of funerals. And I think if you can be there to offer as wide a range of choices as you can. However, let us not forget, that is not always an easy thing to do because where do you stop? Ultimately, it's, we know fine well if someone comes in and says they would like a horse-drawn hearse, we can arrange that for them, or a motorcycle hearse, we can arrange that for them. I have recently seen some really interesting requests that are becoming more and more common. So it's about being being able to adapt to what the consumer is looking for. And as you mentioned quite interestingly, there are trends in funeral service. A royal funeral, I recall being told by my dad many, many, many years ago about one of the biggest changes to funeral service was probably Diana's funeral. Back in the time, that really did. It almost gave people permission to do their own thing. And I think, great, okay, well, let's more of that, it's better. Because at the end of the day, whether it's helping the grieving process or the family just feel satisfied with saying goodbye. The consumer outcome is our priority. We want them to be happy. We want them to feel like they have been able to grieve properly. And choice, I think, is the thing that provides that.
Yeah, brilliant. No, thank you so much. Back to your roles. So, Barry, going back to when you were president of NAFD, can I just ask you a personal question? What did it mean to you to wear the NAFD chain of office? What does that mean to you?
Well, I can't really explain the enormity of wearing that in the sense of pride. Just by chance, on the bottom of the chain, it's got engraved there 1923. And I looked at it and went, my goodness me, I'm wearing it now in 2023. This chain of office is 100 years old. And around the chain are many names. And there's some blanks. And the names around those chains and those links that make the chain, people have given of their time freely. And they've taken on the role to make a difference because that's what they believed in. And that's what I believed. My responsibility of wearing it was to make a difference and hopefully leave my office in a better place than I found it. Yeah. And that's what every president aspires to do. And all those chains, those links in that chain that haven't got names on, that's the future. Yeah. And that's the future. And at my conference, I asked everyone who had got regalia for local area associations around the United Kingdom, if they were attending, please wear them, as well as all our kindred associations, as Declan wore with pride, the SAIF chain and others. It's always the links that make up that chain that brings us together. And that's how I felt, that united part. So it meant an awful lot. Some people don't aspire to go to national. Some people stay with local, but that's as important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wore it with pride. I wore it with a sense of massive responsibility and privilege to do so.
Yeah. No. And for yourself, Declan?
Yeah, I think the key word is responsibility. And that was in my speech. I think when I became First Vice it's an honour, but much more so it's a responsibility. Because the decisions we make now at this time will have a lasting impact. And it's not just me. There is an executive and committees and everyone else. There's a lot of people that contribute to it. And as Barry said, they are a vital part of everything that's done. Because communication is key within any organisation, but particularly when it's a membership organisation where you have to listen to everybody, you have to get the point of view and doing everything. But in terms of, I will reflect afterwards as to exactly what it meant outside of the responsibility and the pride of doing it. Is that I think I came in and it was full steam ahead. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't think I've sat down long enough to actually think about it and go, what does this mean? And I don't want to. I don't think you want to let it in.
Yeah, now isn't the time.
Not the time. Just that way. That's the direction we're going. But afterwards, and I must admit, your speech on the Sunday it was very touching, I have to say. And I actually thought, and I looked up, and I thought, wonder how I'll feel on that day. Will it be relief? Or, probably not. I'll probably think I need more time to get things done. But it doesn't matter. I'm still be there. And there's always great people coming behind us to continue and take it on to the next stage.
And that's exactly my feeling, is that we have to give us that encouragement, but we have to give people the sense of why they come to do what they're doing, why we're all part of this, and that they come willingly and not be forcing people to come forwards. John, you wore the chain as well.
Yeah.
And I know you were proud to do so.
Yeah, hugely.
And the immense responsibility, I say, that goes for all of us. We would always encourage other people to do it because we know that it means something.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely. I think it's interesting. There seems to be, and it's just my own observation, there definitely seems to be a generational change ongoing at the minute. Because I think we've had a lot of people who've been really heavily involved in across all the trade associations in the funeral sector, but I have noticed at events there is this, I don't know if it's the millennials finally coming in, and it's lovely to see.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well.
To see, because we talked about this digital generation, digital natives coming in, and it is fantastic. But you've always got to balance it a wee bit. You need the experience there. You need people who've done it. And you can definitely see if a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee or a group or something, when you've got too much of one and not enough. It's about finding that nice balance.
Well, for my year as president, having Barry behind me was huge for me. Any tense moments, or I'll be on the phone to Barry. It's good. It's really good. It's massive help.
I think you've always got to have, we said it earlier, or I said it earlier, the eye in the rearview mirror. But the strength. Someone said to me many years ago, age and youth have to work together, but that is always the skill of how it evolves.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what the greatest strength is. I think is taking that. There's different components of the experience and the kind of the youth. We are in such an odd transitional time in society.
Yeah.
If you can find that balance between the two, you will have an incredible outcome from it. It's concentrating on it, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah.
And I think as well, this moment in time, not just now or for your year, Barry, but I think people will look back at this time as a very important time. I think it does require the right individuals to ensure that it actually gets to a certain point. But like you both said very clearly, what we do next, now it's there, it's really important. We continue that relationship now moving forward. But I think, it's a special time. I think in the future, we'll look back at this time, as I say, as a very important moment of when we start to really move forward as an industry together.
It was interesting, and to which I made reference to it at my conference, the president of 1924, President Broome, as Jenny was coming in to take the office for 2024, he felt that there needed to be consolidated thinking into state regulation and formal education. And 100 years later, we are actually still on that journey somewhere. The educational part is perhaps a little bit further forward, but the regulation side of it is a work in progress.
Yes, it is. It's so interesting. I was doing some research, and Chris Parker, one of our fellows, very kindly loaned me, actually I've still got them, loaned me her collection of SAIF, the original series of SAIF Insight magazines. And I think the original concept was to talk about the first mobile telephone being used by a funeral director. I think that was the article. I got the whole lot, and it was lovely of her to loan them to me. And it was fascinating to read through some of the articles, some of the things, and it's exactly the same.
Yes.
It is talking about we need to push for this and do this. And as you said, John, we've got this far now. This is brilliant. Given that we've spoken about it so many times for so many years, we absolutely have to keep it moving.
Yeah, definitely.
I think this is the best time to do so.
I think so.
There seems to be an appetite from government. There's obviously, we've had FCA, we've had CMA, the Scottish Government obviously coming in March next year.
Yes.
It's in motion, so we all want it. Let's keep it going. So I think the energy's there, and I think we've got a good collection of people around us working on it. So we just need to keep them all in one room.
Exactly.
Could away.
No, well, I think that's a wonderful point to call a close to the interview. Thank you both for travelling. Declan down from Scotland, Barry up from Portsmouth, together in Shropshire. So thank you so much for your intent, and thank you for your service as well. I think it's a massive thing, not only for the industry, but for society as a whole. So thank you both.
John, can I just say also thank you for what you're doing, bringing these podcasts to our members and to people who are very interested in our world. You are an inspiration also, what you're doing for all of us.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree with that. Absolutely.
Thank you both. That's kind of you. Hey guys, a big thank you for watching the episode with Barry Pritchard and Declan Maguire. Please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. A thank you to our sponsors, and also the interview with Declan Maguire, the SAIF president, is just here. Please click through now.